This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Hey, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Killer Innovations. I know you have a choice for a lot of podcasts that you can listen to, and I greatly appreciate that you've chosen to spend this time with me today. What I'm going to talk about today is a particular, I don't know what you want to call it, a characteristic, a skill that I've noticed in my research looking at highly creative people. Some of the smartest, most creative people I know and met spend an allocated amount of time doing nothing but thinking. For example, Einstein. Now, he was known as a daydreamer. I just finished this phenomenal biography on Einstein, and it was a real eye-opener, and that's what kind of got me thinking about the topic for today's show. Now, his work was based primarily on thought experiments. Now, what do I mean by thought experiments? These were experiments that Einstein ran, completely carried out in his imagination. It wasn't sketching, it wasn't in the laboratory, it was literally just sitting there and running through the experiment in his head. Now, in Einstein's case, he wondered specifically what would happen if he were able to ride a train moving at the speed of light and then looking at a light wave out the window. What would he see? Now, given that he would be traveling at the same speed in such an instance, he went on to predict that the light would appear frozen to him, like he was tracking right along with it. Now, he didn't know it then, but that simple thought experiment would lead to basically transforming physics as we know it today, leading to Einstein's theory of relativity. It changed everything just by him just doing this daydream thing that people accused him of in running these thought experiments. Now, our society doesn't embrace or even allow for daydreaming, right? Think about what would happen in your job if your boss constantly came by your desk and just saw you sitting there doing nothing. Most organizations view this as being lazy, you're unproductive. Measurement of output is one of the key characteristics of most corporations today. It's focused on hours worked, deliverables, etc. We need to transform our thinking on that. And in fact, not that long ago, within my organization where I'm a CEO, we've transformed things like, what does vacation mean? What does time off mean? What does work-life balance mean? Versus, tracking systems in order to track hours worked and how much vacation time have you earned and etc. is giving the individuals permission to know when do they need to take a break, when do they need to go away, and just let themselves get refreshed. Now, in Europe, many of the vacation times are actually regulated. You're given X number of weeks, and typically everybody takes the vacation at the same time, depending on what part of Europe you're in. In the United States, where I'm based, most people never use their entire vacation time because there's this almost cultural thing of people not taking those vacations. And then when people do take vacations, they're still online. They're still answering emails, they're taking phone calls, etc. And in fact, I have a policy as a CEO that if you take vacation and you have responsibilities that are going to have things that happen while you're on vacation, then one, you must appoint somebody who sits in your chair who can make all those decisions while you're gone on vacation. And two, when you come back, you are not allowed to counteract any decision that was made. And three, if you are caught on email or Slack while you're on vacation, your email and Slack account will be turned off. Pretty simple. Because you are infinitely more creative, infinitely more productive if you truly take that time to rest. Now, what I'm talking about today is a little bit different. It's not just, the vacation. That's important because we gotta refresh ourselves. We can't work day in, day out, months and years ahead. Now, look, I've learned this from experience because I have a habit of falling into workaholic kinds of characteristics. My father did it. I saw him do it. I fall into it. I fell into it early part of my career, and it didn't turn out well, right? I sacrificed a lot. My family sacrificed a lot. If I were to rewind it, I probably would do things a little bit differently, or maybe even a lot differently. As the saying goes, nobody ever says on their tombstone that they wish they had worked more. So how do we work smarter? Well, this concept of daydreaming, taking the time as part of a regular scheduled kind of activity through the week and just not doing anything, just daydreaming, just thinking. There's a great Ford story. So Henry Ford, had his factories. He's building the factories. Also just got done finishing a great Ford biography also, which is kind of all feeding in here. But there's this story of Henry Ford. He's building up these factories. He's trying to increase productivity, and he brings in, these experts on efficiency and time management and process steps, etc. Now, this efficiency expert went to Ford and complained about a specific man who basically sat at his desk with his feet propped up. Wasn't on the factory floor, wasn't in meetings, wasn't having, generating a bunch of documents. He literally was sitting with his feet up on the desk. And this efficiency expert complained to Henry Ford about it. And Ford said, whoa. That specific person came up with an idea that saved me millions of dollars. And he was sitting at his desk, just like he is now, just thinking. And Ford added that he was paying that man to come up with that next great idea. How do we weave this into this work philosophy of today, where it's all about, looking good? You want to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave, so the boss sees that you're putting in the hours. I've even been in positions where I've had employees purposely sending emails at weird hours, like at 2 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning, to make it look like they're pulling all-nighters and working, really, really hard. And in reality, it actually has proven out to be counterproductive. Those employees, now you have to do that for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of activity. But if an employee or a staff or a team or a coworker is doing this on a sustained basis, their creative output starts to plummet. Now, the question I have is, when I look at these people whose ideas change the world, whether it's Henry Ford or Albert Einstein or Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk, you go through, create your own list. But when I look at those people whose ideas really change the world, daydreaming combined with what's called and what I refer to as reflective thinking is a common trait. When you look back, and I've been doing a lot of these biographies of really high impact creative individuals to try to extract kind of what's that one thing that could help others kind of unlock their own creative ability. This kind of just sitting back and thinking, reflecting, letting those thoughts come into your head about connecting things that you just would never have connected in the past. It's this daydreaming is kind of the common trait. And it's interesting because in these biographies I've been reading, it's always been viewed as a negative. Einstein was viewed as the scattered brain professor at Princeton, shuffling around the campus, not even recognizing coworkers as he walked to his offices because he was deep in thought. People taking long vacations and being gone for 2 months to the lake or up in the mountains. And then people saying, well, they're just, sloughing, they're lazy, they're not being productive. My question is this just a coincidence? If not, can we harness it? Can we learn something here where can we harness it and have positive impact even in our own creative ability? And that's the question we are going to dive into in today's show. Is daydreaming some form of a tool or ability that if we could harness it, could it have a radical change on our creative output? So stay right there. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break and continue our conversation around daydreaming, reflective thinking, and its impact on your creativity.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Before we hop back into this segment, just need to do a quick shout out to Zoom, one of our sponsors here at Killer Innovations. Eric Ewing and the team at Zoom have created a phenomenal tool for those of us in the creative economy. And that is, how do you harness the best and brightest and most creative people no matter where they live? You need a tool that allows you to collaborate, to have conversations, to chat, to share ideas. That is what Zoom does for you and your team. Now, I've been using Zoom with my team every day, now almost over 2 years. And I use it every day, and I don't know how I lived without it. So check it out. Zoom is making available a free account that will allow you to collaborate with up to 50 people. So check it out. Hop on over to killerinnovations.com/Zoom and check it out and get that free account. In our conversations on the whole concept of reflective thinking, daydreaming, whatever terms you want to use, many people think there's really not been a lot of academic research applied to this, and they would be completely wrong. Fiona Kerr is a scientific communicator and a member of the faculty at the University of Adelaide. Now, she shares that, quote, daydreaming with reflective thinking allows the mind to wander. The outcome is consistently more productive when dealing with complex problems or coming up with creative solutions and ideas. So here's an academic person who specializes in thinking about scientific communications and creative thinking, creative thought, even endorsing this idea. Now, I'll tell you, there's not a lot of research, though. I've been digging around, and as maybe as part of input for book number 2, which we are pretty actively in the middle of, around this whole concept of daydreaming, reflective thinking, as being kind of a I don't know what you want to call it, a turbocharger for our creativity. But here is one that I found that I just thought that quote was really great. And the most important part was the outcome is consistently more productive when dealing with complex problems or coming up with creative solutions. So if that doesn't give you permission to go daydream, I don't know what that is. Now, some of you may be saying, hold on, she talked about this term reflective thinking, Phil, and you talked about it earlier in this recording. What is reflective thinking? Now, reflective thinking is a concept that in many cases gets applied to learning, but I think it actually has a much broader appeal. So reflective thinking helps learners develop higher order thinking skills. It prompts the learners to A, relate new knowledge to prior understanding. So as you learn new things and you apply it to things of the past, you make those connections. It allows you to think both in abstract and conceptual terms. So you think in the abstract, but you can get down and be very specific, but it's really around stepping back and looking at the big picture. It allows you to apply specific strategies and novel tasks, so randomly trying solutions against the ideas in your head. And it also helps you understand your own thinking and learning strategies. Reflective thinking is basically taking that moment and becoming self-aware on how you think. Thinking about the problems you're facing, thinking about how to look at something differently, challenging yourself to think differently. Now, in this case, daydreaming and reflection enables also memory consolidation. Things that you thought were completely random, all of a sudden being joined up in a way that you had never thought of. Now, many cases when I was doing my research on this whole concept of daydreaming, this reflective thinking capability always seemed to get attached to it or was used in references of linking to them. And in many cases, I also sometimes think about them as really being the same thing. It's not about daydreaming where you just sit in a chair and you dream about, sitting on the beach and having a beer, that's you're daydreaming. But I guess more specifically, can you daydream in a focused way? Can you take all the distractions away and therefore then think about things that are maybe challenges in front of you, problems that you have been unable to solve, etc. Now, many of us, we maybe are self-conscious to this, but we do reflective thinking when, for instance, we're in the car. I do a lot of it when I'm in the car driving from my house here in northern Colorado to the office over closer to Boulder. And, I'm thinking about whatever meeting I had the day before where we left something as a challenge. We hadn't found a solution for something yet. And I find that just being quiet and just thinking about it, then I start to make these kinds of connections that I just never had thought of before. So again, let me run through this again. What is reflective thinking? Reflective thinking helps learners, you, develop higher order thinking skills. It's about thinking about how you think. But it does this by prompting you to, for instance, connect new technology with prior understanding. What did you learn yesterday? And is there something in your past that you could connect it to together? It really allows you to think in both abstract and conceptual terms. Take the big picture, get out of the details, take that step back, think about it in a broader context. Apply strategies to novel tasks. You have a strategy and approach on how you solve problems. You've applied it in the past. You've got this new problem. Can you apply that? Run your version of an Einstein mental thought experiments around the problem that you're trying to solve. And it helps you understand kind of your own thinking and learning strategies. So again, daydreaming and this reflective thinking combined. Daydreaming is just that get away, don't be constrained, but do it in a structured way in this form of reflective thinking. The two of those combined, I think, can be a real tool to unlocking your creative output. Now, in reality, when you think about this, like such as relating new knowledge to prior understanding, that's kind of that randomness, connecting the dots. Thinking about things in conceptual ways. Look at new or strategies in novel problems or opportunities. When you really think about that, what would you call it today? I would call it creative thinking. It sounds a lot like the terms, we talk about creative thinking, but we've never really, it's hard to define what creative thinking is. I think creative thinking is this kind of daydream plus reflective thinking combined together. Now, we're going to talk more about this. Going to give you some examples of how to actually do this. So don't go anywhere. We're going to continue our conversation on daydreaming, reflective thinking, and how to boost your creativity. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Before we hop back in the show, I need to do a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, HP. HP became a sponsor for Killer Innovations 3 months ago, and their support has been phenomenal. They've also been supplying us with some new equipment that allows us to produce this show and update it and be able to do things like the Facebook live stream and improve the overall quality of the production. Now, for those of you who've been longtime listeners of the show, you know that I've been funding the entire show for the last 13 years out of my pocket. The funding that we get from our sponsors allows us to allocate more of our money to the nonprofit charities that we support. That includes hackingautism.org and Pioneer Education Africa. And you can go check out those. So any profits left over, anything left over from the sponsorships that I get, then goes to the charities. So check that out. Check out the charities. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and donate. But I would also encourage you to go check out HP. Give them a big thank you for the support that allows us to produce the show that you're enjoying here today. Great gear, great equipment. I should know. I'm the former CTO at this organization. Great team over there, and check it out. You can also find out more about what they're doing with us over at killerinnovations.com/HP. And if you have any questions, always just drop me a note, and I'll be more than willing to answer you or connect you to the right people over there if you're interested. Now look, we all do it. We all daydream, right? We let our minds wander. Right? I bet you I was a professional daydreamer by the time I was in junior high. I always would prefer to pick the desk next to the window, not in the last row, because those tended to be the troublemakers, but the second to last row next to the window. That way I could just look out the window, let my mind wander, and daydream. Now, I'm sure we've all done it, and I'm sure for those of you who are creating new products or trying to solve problems, I'm sure you've had that moment. You're in the car, you're sitting, in the mountains, you're at the beach, you're at the lake, wherever, and you're not really engaged in a conversation. You're just thinking when all of a sudden that light bulb goes off and the solution to the problem or that idea for the new innovation all comes together. All the dots get connected. Past inspirations lead to some random connections that all of a sudden you come up with it. Now, the question I have, though, is would a more purposeful effort, more deliberate effort, yield a disproportionately greater reward? So rather than letting, daydreaming just happen randomly, if you put together a structured approach to it, would you have more output, better ideas, higher quality ideas, new ideas that you just haven't even thought of? I don't know the answer to that. Hasn't been a lot of research done in this space. So guess what? You and I are going to do an experiment. Now, I'm inviting you to be part of this experiment with me. Now, here's the experiment I'm going to run, and I invite you to be part of it, right? Don't be passive and just think that you're going to wait and, 2 months from now, I'm going to come back on through the show and tell you what the output was. You need to experience this yourself. So what is this? It's called the 2-hour exercise. The experiment that I'm going to run is set aside a specific time each week and just think for 2 hours. Set aside 2 hours. No distraction, no computer, no phone, no music, no talking. 2 hours every week. No distractions. That means no computer. Don't get tempted to check Facebook. No phone. Not looking for the little screen to light up and you're going to go over and see if you got a thumbs up on a post you just did. No music. No talking. In my case, I will be using my Moleskine to record thoughts and ideas. So it's pen to paper. Not going to use Evernote, which I've talked about in the past as one of my big tools for collecting ideas. Going to bring out a Moleskine with a pen, and I'm just going to log the ideas and thoughts that come to me. So how do you get started? I mean, it's daunting. I mean, it's hard just to sit still for 10 minutes. But this is going to require to sit still for 2 hours. And as I talked about before, my hypothesis is it's not just about sitting down and just letting the mind totally wander. It's about structured daydreaming, right? It's about having some form to it. It's some way to use that reflective thinking, to reflect back on things that you're working on or things that you're thinking back and not be distracted, but have a concerted effort. Look, every day there is a huge amount of distraction. There is constant demands for attention, whether it's family or friends or, the pressure to get something done or a deliverable. So this is an experiment. We're going to see collectively, this community of listeners, whether we think having a structured approach to daydreaming, reflective thinking, whatever you want to call it, can have on creative output. So how do you get started? Well, I would propose you ask yourselves questions. Now, I'm guessing you weren't surprised by that idea, given people know me as the question guy. Now, you can use any questions you can use questions from the Killer Question Card Deck, and if you don't have that, hop on over to innovation.tools. You can purchase one over there. It's 48 questions. You randomly pick one, you can answer them. Now, here are some sample questions, and I'll post these over at over in the show notes over at innovations.com. They came from an author, Zat Rainey, over at Medium, which is kind of not the exact questions. I reworded them a little bit because I didn't really get all excited about the specific questions they posted, but they were kind of the inspiration. First one, do I have the right priorities and do I apply them? Think about how you're prioritizing your time. Just sit back and think, okay, where is the prioritization of work and family? Where's the prioritization of, friends and fitness and other things? If you've been a long time listener, I'm a believer of what's called the 5 F's, and you can go search that if you're interested. Is my work-life balance working? Right? It isn't just about the ideas, it's also about how to improve yourself, right? So daydreaming and reflective thinking is really about also learning about yourself. What idea do I have that I'm not pursuing? What is it you're working on, or that an idea that you had that you're not pursuing? Something that's really, and just by the fact of bringing that idea to your mind while you're daydreaming will all of a sudden spark other ideas around that idea or things that you could do. For instance, what small step could I take that would have a major impact on that idea? I had this idea, haven't done anything with it, Then ask your that next question is, what small step could I take to have a major impact on that idea? Another question, where do you want to be in 1 year with your idea or with your life? Where do you want to be in a year? Because as soon as you ask yourself that kind of a question, then you're starting to come up with ideas about, well, if I want to get there, if I want to found my own company, I want to go raise $5 million for this idea, if I want to do, take a year off with my family and go travel the world, by asking the question and not being distracted and just thinking about it, I'm going to guess that's going to generate ideas. It's going to be ideas to the question you ask yourself because now you're thinking about it. Simply by prompting yourself to think about it, that will spark the ideas. So we're going to do this experiment. We're going to do it for 60 days, 2 months. 30 days is what you need to get it into a habit. We're going to do this for 60 days, 2 hours a week. That's all you need. Log it, and we're going to see how this experiment works. So are you with me? Don't be chicken. Come on, you can be part of this. Let's find out, what is this role of daydreaming and reflective thinking on creative output? So when I come back, I'm going to give you a little more specifics on the experiment and how you can participate. And we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So let's talk more about the experiment. What am I going to be doing? So I'm going to commit to doing this 2-hour experiment for the next 60 days, 2 months, right? 30 days is roughly what you have to do to turn something into a habit, right? Get up, walk every day, run every day for 30 days, you start building it into a habit. We're going to do this for 60 days. It's 2 hours a week. Not a lot of time, right? Look, if you were going to do, 30 minutes of walking, that's 2 days, or 4 days of walking if you did 30 minutes a day, right? Now, in some future show, I'm going to report back how it went for me. And did the hypothesis prove itself out? Now, remember, the hypothesis is a concerted effort, setting aside time, doing it regularly, and having kind of daydreaming, or more accurately, structured daydreaming or reflective thinking in the process. Does it transform creative output? Right? There's not been a lot of research in this. There's been some, not a lot. So we're going to try to prove if this hypothesis is true. And so again, would purposeful effort of daydreaming, reflective thinking yield this disproportionately greater reward of better ideas? Now, if you're part of the community, I'll set up a Slack channel where we can share how it's going for each of us. And we'll use that Slack channel as a way to support and encourage each other. If you are not part of the community, you should think about joining. The community is a private Slack community of innovators and creatives who come together to challenge each other, to grow, to improve, to learn new skills, and become better innovators, better creatives. If you're interested, you can go check it out over at theinnovators.community. theinnovators.community, and I'll put a link in the bottom of the show notes. So you want to go check that out. So I will be contributing over in a Slack channel. If you're on the community, contribute your own into that Slack channel. If you're not in the community, join the community so that you can be part of this. Now, I'll post the sample questions that I shared with you before, but you can come up and get your own questions wherever you think, or develop your own questions, but I'll put them over in the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. And I would, again, encourage you to become part of the Innovators community. That's where I hang out every day. People in the community know that they can reach me, talk to me, chat with me, do casual conversations. And in fact, I just posted in the community today, I'm going to be in New York here on September 26th, and I'll be in Washington, D.C. on September 26th and September 29th, and I'll be hosting a breakfast. So if you are in the community, that information is posted over in the events channel in the community. If you're not, stay tuned. Once people in the community kind of gets first shot, then others, if we have slots available, we'll open that up. And if you happen to be in the area and want to come grab breakfast and meet other innovators, that would be great. So again, 2-month experiment. We're going to either prove or disprove this hypothesis. We're going to learn it together, so be part of this. And we'll see what the outcome is. No bias. Let's see. Does using reflective thinking, using other skills, just daydreaming, do we increase our creative output. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Now, I know you have a choice of podcasts to listen to, and the fact that you chose this one means a lot to me. And it keeps me motivated to keep putting these shows together. Feedback from you, it's emails from you, it's people making comments when we run into each other out and about, saying that they appreciate the podcast. That's what motivates me. Now, could I ask one favor? Just as this podcast is my way to pay it forward, and many of you have heard this story about how, why I started this show back in 2005. Can you help me pay it forward? Now, how can you help me pay it forward? By telling others about the show. Maybe posting a link to the show on your social media, helping others discover the show. If you know somebody who would benefit from the show but is not familiar with podcasting or how to listen to it over on the iHeartRadio app, check that out and help them get it, right? We are now, to make it even easier, we are now on iHeartRadio. So you can find it over on the iHeartRadio app. Just search for the show. It's there. You can download it and you can listen to that. Okay? So thanks. Thanks for considering helping me out. Spread the word of the show. Pay it forward to help others become more creative, particularly as we transition from this information knowledge economy to this creative economy. If you have any feedback or ideas on future shows, always looking for new show ideas. Look, I've been doing this show now. We're in season 14. Or coming up on 14. It's been a lot of years, a lot of show content. So if there's a particular topic you want me to go deeper on, or you want to share something that you're going through, send them my way. The best way to get a hold of me is just drop me an email over at phil@killerinnovations.com. That comes directly to me, does not get filtered. If you are part of the community, just direct message me through the Slack for the Innovators community. Have a great and creative week. I can't wait to hear your results from the 2-hour experiment. I can't wait to hear how it's going. I'm anticipating the first couple of weeks it's going to be like really hard because I can't think how I'm going to sit still for 2 hours. I just have too much energy, too many things going on. The CEO, family, 5 grandkids, lots going on. And how am I going to sit still for 2 hours? But I'm going to commit 2 hours a week. Let's do this experiment. So again, have a great creative week. And until the next show, don't let the innovation antibodies get you down. Don't let anybody's attacks and negative comments about your ideas, your work on innovation, your work on creativity get you down. Right? We need innovators. We need solutions to really hard problems. And you are part of that solution. So get out and change the world with that next great innovation. And we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us. You've been listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.